So, if you could, go ahead and repeat after me. Baruch atah Adonai, Dayan ha'emet. We praise you, God, Judge of truth. And now you'll tear up from the bottom, just kind of halfway up, to make it tear down. Put on each day. It symbolizes your torn heart. The children have it on their left side because it's literally the heart that was given to you by your dad, and the others across from it because you are linked heart-to-heart in a sense. Darlene, of course, has his beloved, and Bruce and Cliff as brothers. So thank you so much for being here, and I'm sorry that you can't be surrounded by the comfort and love of the gigantic Bercovich clan. So many of you supporting one another, being there for one another. And I'm both honored and humbled to be here in bad times and good, in so many different ways, with your family, from baby namings to weddings to, of course, funerals as well. So the morning begins today. We are here to actually bury our loved one, to bury Edward. And then the comfort will begin afterward. And you're not going to feel it right away, of course. It's going to be weeks and months and years till we're really, truly able to parse this out and understand the lessons that he taught us while we're here. But nevertheless, today, we're going to celebrate a life well lived. So given our sadness and the idea that there are no real words of comfort I can bring you at this difficult time, we turn to the voices of our scriptures, which have given comfort to our ancestors in days gone by, and maybe a little bit today too. The 23rd Psalm, Adonai Ro'i lo achzar. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures, and leadeth me beside the still waters, the restorer of my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. So, Edward Bercovich, Ezra Leib ben Shlomo ben Eliana, survived by lovely wife Darlene, sibling Bruce and Cliff, children Michael and Brandon, and 3 amazing granddaughters, Emma, Audrey, and Samantha, who all know him as Pop. Okay, now you call him Pop?
What did you call him?
So we're going to talk a little bit about what his life was like. And then when I'm done, if others want to add a few words, you certainly can. So I was thinking about the Torah portion, not this week, but one that's coming up in a few weeks, as I was working with someone on Dvar Torah about it. It's called Nitzavim. And at that Torah portion, all the Jews are standing around Mount Sinai, everyone from the wealthiest, the princes, to the poorest, the wood choppers, the water drawers. And the idea is that we're all there at the covenant. And that we all were there, even those who weren't born yet. We all met at Mount Sinai. And I can just imagine Edward being there, running around to every single person there, with his hellos, his quick takes on things. Some of them mumbled even. From the kings and the princes and the elders to those wood choppers and water drawers. Edward was born into, well, the most prominent family in our synagogue anyway, the Bercovich family. Oldest of 3 boys. Very happy childhood with the boys, with swimming pools. And he kind of did what he wanted. As Darlene said to me, the rules, Edward felt the rules applied to everyone else, not necessarily to him. And she shared a few stories with me how he had eye surgery at 2 years old, and he got these glasses, which was not an easy thing then, and he broke them immediately. He also climbed out of his crib, out the window, ran to the front door, and rang the doorbell. A story he loved to tease his mom, Ellen, with. Again, his own rules. At Hebrew school and at regular school, he was, from what I understand, somewhat of a challenge. Cantor Cohen, the cantor at the time, wrote a letter to Sam, his dad, about how challenging he was. And one of the stories that came out of that was that apparently when someone else was being tutored, he burst into the office and says, Cantor, you gotta listen to this new record. So this was part of him as well. Very into sports, as most of the Bercoviches are, the Raiders, and everything else. He was a good athlete himself. He lettered in football, wrestling, and golf, which he was always very proud to say. He even went on to play football in college at the University of Nevada, Reno. And he was into it as a kid, attending the practices and the games of the Bercovich's all-star baseball team. He really grew up in the family business, too, at the furniture store. So he was born into and was such a part of this prominent family growing up. He also made everyone he met into family. After high school, he went to the Army Reserves. Apparently, Ellen cried all the way down to driving him on the drive to San Luis Obispo. He loved the Army Reserves. He was in great shape to handle the physical part, but he didn't have to do that much because he immediately made friends with all the mucking mucks. Became an MP right away, but mostly that just involved driving the Jeep, getting them washed and the license. And somehow he learned his gambling skills in the Army, playing craps and poker with his unit. He loved to help and just do people favors in general. That was just a big part of him. And all his jobs were people jobs, whether it was being a concert promoter, a ticket broker, real estate sales. He was really a salesperson through and through because he had these skills with people. And apparently he was really, Brandon and Michael were sure, he loved to make a deal. He would simply say, this is a deal, you're going to take it. And that's what usually happened. The synagogue was a family to him. He made it his family. He kept coming back and joining. You know, he might move away for a while, then he'd come back and he would join. And he was sort of a historian to a great extent for the synagogue. He was constantly telling me certain things about certain families, how these plaques got on walls, the difference between the two Alan Silvers and the two Ben Silvers and their families, Rabbi Schulweis, Cantor Cohen, and even the AZA days. And actually one of our recent new members who lives in Rossmore and joined there after moving from Marin, his name is Gene Kaufman, actually used to be the president or the CEO of Sinai Memorial Funeral Home, said, is that the guy, is he about mid-70s? Is that the guy I knew in AZA, Edward Bercovich from Oakland? And indeed it was. It is. Of course, he made his own family, which starts with Darlene. Apparently in August of '77, she told me, she was in the Navy, driving down the freeway, she heard an ad for Bercovich Furniture, a Labor Day sale, when she needed to decorate her officer's quarters. Ed sees her right away, becomes a salesperson. She spends about 3 hours in there. She bought a sofa bed and a chair, and of course the whole family worked there, so she was immediately introduced to everybody in the family. And he invited her to dinner on Grand Avenue at a place called the Sirloin. They ended up in a booth right next to his three best friends. So immediately Darlene was introduced to the entire family and the family, the extended family, from the beginning. He swept me off my feet, she told me, a naive girl from Alabama, and there was so much excitement in the air. He returned that favor when on Melissa and Brandon's second or third date, it was to his 60th birthday party, and Edward spent most of it talking to Melissa and making her feel comfortable. They, great adventures with Darlene, traveled to Israel, Brazil, Costa Rica, and many other places. He lived for his sons, for Michael, and for Brandon. He went to every sporting event. He encouraged them in school. He coached them. He was around so much while the practice, people would constantly ask him, does your dad have a job? He connected them to others in business. He taught them to get into property early on and more. And Brandon and Michael talked about how much fun they had growing up, Lake Berryessa in the summer, water skiing, snow skiing, an incident where he broke his shoulder, and Brandon says to him, come on, Dad, just tough it out, not realizing that his shoulder was broken. They had their own language. There's a mumbling aspect to all of them. And I've seen some of this. They'll make a comment or they'll ask a question and then they'll just leave. Right? That's all. They don't need a whole conversation. They'll just tell you something real quick and walk away. And that apparently includes on the phone too, right? They'll call for half a second, say a word, and just hang up. And the most joy given to them of all we're the granddaughters, right? Audrey and Samantha and Emma. Pop just love you so much and love watching you and seeing you and talking to you and a little bit of teasing you too, right? He liked to tease you. If he found something to tease you about, he would tease you about it over and over and over again. Like, didn't he say to you, like, I'm a king, I need a crown?
Yeah, and I tried to make him one, but I told him he had to do something to earn it, and that was clean up his trash that he left around his house.
Well, that's great that you had that. And I remember he and Darlene would take you to Shabbat Mishpachah, the synagogue. It was great to see you. He loved you girls so
I
much.
wish that I kind of wanted that I saw that when we went to the cemetery, when my mom and dad told me, I saw I can make a nice crown and take it to him for the present, but and then I the one that I
Yeah, you know, and if you ever want to do that when you take a visit to him, you can do that in the future. He also, it's not just you, the whole family, he was in touch with everyone, all the obscure cousins. Michael and Jenny were talking about that, how he was the one who would keep up with everybody and give the reports. And even his fishing pole was about family. He got it from an uncle in 1949, and he continued to use it. Michael said his legacy was family. These were all part of his legacy. Truly a family man, a one who built an incredible family, came from an incredible family, and made everyone into his family. Zichrono Livracha, may his memory be a blessing to us all. Amen.
Amen.
Right, does anyone want to add a story or a word? It's just you all here.
No, I mean, I think you covered, a lot of the things we talked about, but, this is his legacy. He did anything for Brandon and I. We were always, his most important thing, and whatever we wanted to do, he took us on the most fun trips and the most awesome events, and it was just about, about us. And, that his legacy is to teaching us that, and the relationship he had with his parents too. And that's just, his legacy was building those bonds, and we just hope to pass that down to these little kids and keep that tradition going. That's what I think it is.
Thank you, Michael. I promise we'll get to you in just a minute, Emma. I want to see if any of the other grown-ups want to say anything first, and then we'll ask.
I'll tell a story because Bruce is not able to do it at this point. When Bruce was 13, Ed took him out to play cards, and Ellen said, well, that's fine, but you have to be back at 10:30 or 11. Well, they came home to bring the newspaper in. Ellen was waiting, and at the time, Bruce said, oh, my mother was so mad. And then years later, he thought it over and he figured out my mother actually would have loved that Ed loved him so much to take him out and keep him out all night long.
There's one other piece to that. We actually went and played golf against his two friends, and we killed them in the afternoon. Not so well at poker all night. I didn't even know that.
Anyone else have anything to add?
Yeah, so when we used to go to Valley with the jacuzzis, Grass Valley. And my parents, there was like 10 couples there. They had this huge ranch or house, and the kids would all sleep outside. Well, my friend's parents were always drunk the whole time, and they were. And Ellen and Sam were not.
That's our dentist you're talking.
Yes, you're right. Anyway, so the area was so big that you could drive to their lake on their property. So one of my friend Ira's parents threw him the keys and said, you can take the kids down. And he's 9 months younger than me. I was 13 and he was not even 13. And I said, gee, I'm older, I should get to drive. And because my parents weren't drunk, they didn't say that was a good idea. But Edward said, it's okay. So Edward, of course, was 16. So he took the car and me, and we went off someplace else on their property, and I got to drive also. But anyway, that was
Good mischief making. Any other adults? Brandon, you want to say anything?
I think Michael covered it. I just, would say, how involved he was with us. I remember when I had one of my first jobs in tech in Redwood City, he would drive out in the middle of the night to play at a weekly poker game to really show the rest of these guys how it actually worked. And that was a fun memory when one of my coworkers was talking to him, and my father would always chat everyone up, and would mention that I went to Piedmont, and he said, "Oh, he went to Piedmont," and we got to talking, and he was actually one of friends with our cousin who grew up in Piedmont as well. So he just always loved talking to people and always doing everything with his family.
Thank you, Brandon. Okay, Emma, what else do you want to say?
I remember that every time Grandpa teased me, I will laugh, but I was kind of also afraid too.
Yeah.
Because I love the baby swimming and Grandpa too, but I miss him a lot. I really wanted to play with him still.
Yeah, and we're all going to miss him and that you can't play with him, but he knows how much you loved him, and I'm so glad you got to have that special time with him. Darlene, did you want to add anything?
Well, our life was a real adventure. There were definitely ups and downs, but it was more excitement than I probably had dreamt for my own life, having combined it with his. We went a lot of places, we did a lot of things. He was an adventure.
Rabbi, can I say one more
Thank you.
thing?
Yeah, Monica.
I don't know if Darlene remembers this, but when you were picking out your wedding dress, she took me with you.
Right.
And I remember getting to know you, and I remember coming home and saying to Bruce, "This is Ed's best decision."
His mother always does the same thing.
Yes.
Love it. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I'm now going to recite what's called the El Malay Racham. El Malay Rachamim, Shop En Madaromim, Amasim Rachagafona, Tapar Manfeshina, Balosh Toshim Otorim, Gezorak Yamazirim, Et Nishmat, Ezra Leb Ben Shlomo Beliana, Shachar Leolam, Gan Eden, Tenenu Bako, Allah Ba'arachamim, Masbirehu, Asifrefek Leolamim, Utsho Mitzuchim, Et Nishmato, Arnai Hunachato, Yanuch B'Shalom, Al Mishkavo, V'Nomar, Amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infant rest from sheltering presence among the holy and the pure, the soul of Israel and Shlomo Eliana, Edward Bercovich, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful one, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in the shadow of your wings. May his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. May he rest in peace. And let us say, Amen.
Amen.
So this time we're going to move the casket into the crypt. May Edward come to his final resting place in peace. God has given, God has taken, nevertheless, we bless the name of God. So before we recite, actually we'll end with it. So we're going to recite the mourner's cottage now, and then we'll also recite or either hear or sing some form of taps as well for the military, in place of the military mourners. Mourner's cottage. Yitkadam, the Yitkadash, Meirama, Bialmani, Rahirute, Yalichmahute, Chayecho, Yomecho, Chayecho, Be Israel, Bagabar, Bisman, Karivi, Amen. Yeheshme, Rabam, Moram, Leolam, Omeh, Maya, Vitoram, Ishtabach, Vitar, Vitramam, Vitnasel, Vitadar, Vitale, Vitala, Shmei Kucha, Berehu. Le'ela min kol berchata shirata, tushberata nefmata, amiram bi'alma bi'ru, amen. Yehi shama rama min shemaya, yechayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael be'hibru, amen. Oseh shalom ve'imrama, uyaseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael be'hibru, amen. Zikaron livracha, may his memory continue to bless. Brother, did you want to play it on your phone or taps, or do you want to just?
Sure. I mean, if you forgive
For some
how,
reason, he weighed in to thinking that he had.
Just a minute.
One minute last
I'm going to play something on your phone, okay?
We even asked about like they wanted to bring the whole village because of COVID. I give you a little context.
so recently I came across all 3 verses. It's only a minute and a half, so if you'll bear with me, I'm going forgive my voice.
Thank you, Mother. That's lovely.
Beautiful. Emma, do you want to say one more thing before we leave?
Oh, actually, Samantha was going to say a few words.
Samantha, you want to say anything? You want to say anything? You say I love you, Pop? Thank you.
Thank you. Macom Menachem Echem, Construction Zion, Yerushalayim, may God comfort you with all the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. Thank you so much for being here. We will, tomorrow night, there will be a Zoom Shiva, and hopefully you'll have the link. If not, contact me.
Thank you. Thank you, Rabbi.
And we have
Thank you, Rabbi.
so far in white. Post it on Facebook. Thank you very much.
Of course.